Hello there, and welcome to the Meaningful Stitch. This is episode 8, and I am Aimee and I'm coming to you from Edinburgh, Scotland. This is my digital home from home, a place where I get to share with you my knitting practice and my knitting projects. I've got quite a lot to share with you today, but before we get to that, I drew a card for us today, as I always do. And this time I drew it from the Archetypes deck by Krans. And I just wanted to share with you the card that I drew, which is this one, the Queen. So I'm going to read you the words from the guide, which says, like her counterpart, the King, the Queen has a dualistic nature. Either she presides over the realm with grace and eloquence that comes from the heavens to uplift the spirit of others, or she falls into petty contemptuous moods, casting a shadow across the land. If the king is the ego, the queen is the expression of that ego in the world. She is the lotus's blossom, the dancer's bow, the moon's radiant reflection. When the queen is seated in her rightful and righteous place, she is patient and forgiving. She waits for the grace of God and Goddess to move through her, striving and grasping for nothing. To be the benevolent leader, to embody the Queen is to settle into deep trust, resolve and power. The royal Queen fears nothing, for divinity itself cradles her heart. Whenever I think of the Queen archetype, it makes me think of the incredible value of creative sovereignty. Creative sovereignty for me is the power to choose what I create next. It gives me the confidence to choose the projects and to invest my time, energy and attention into those projects. It's the one that is a part of me that honours my craft as a sacred practice in and of itself. And it's an incredibly valuable quality for me to be able to express my creative sovereignty. So in that way, I become the queen of my realm, or the queen of my stash anyway. My yarn stash, I certainly have plenty of it. And it really gives me the confidence that I can then move through my own creative practice in the way that I wish to. And you'll certainly see evidence of that this time round. So thank you for joining me again here. If you've just joined for the first time, then this is episode 8, and there's quite a few other episodes for you to go back and explore if you wish to. If you have been watching, then you'll probably recognise this beautiful shawl that I'm wearing, which is my Birds of a Feather shawl. Now, it's knitted in La Bien-Aimée Mohair silk in rust, which you can see here, and then in 3 colours of La Bien-Aimée's Helix, which is a Gotland and Falkland Merino, I think, blend, a light fingering blend. And I have it in rust and Kitsune, and in this beautiful Goldenrod colour as well. And it was a project that I worked on with my mum, who is based over in France. And so she gave me the yarn, and we both had the same quantities and the same colours, and we both started on the same pattern, the same shawl. But we didn't discuss beforehand where we were going to position the colours, and so it became a really lovely project to kind of create a shawl that was matching but not. And so I've really been enjoying this shawl. It's very lovely. It's lovely and light, and I love the colours. Well, just last week I got a beautiful gift from my brother's girlfriend's mum, who is just a complete delight. Hi, Sabina. She's based over in Germany, and she gave me a beautiful gift, which is these lovely earrings. Aren't they completely gorgeous? And she said that she saw them and she knew that they would go with this particular shawl, and so she wanted me to have them, and so she sent them over. Aren't they completely beautiful? And such a lovely, thoughtful gift. So thank you so much. And yes, thank you for being part of this story. It's very much appreciated. So I knew I had to wear them for today's episode, and I knew I had to wear the shawl. And underneath the shawl, I will show you what I have completed this week because it matches the earrings too. So you will see that I have finished this, which is my Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry. I'll stand up so you can see. It's kind of a cropped, it's like a finishes kind of at my natural waist, and about 3/4 length, slightly longer than 3/4 length sleeves. I've knitted it in Ginger Twist Mass and Mayhem in the Crunchy Leaves colourway, and this colour work part up the top here is Ching fibre, and it's in the Melted Suri Alpaca in the colourway Shindig. So one thing I will tell you about this pattern, or about this fabric, is that I did helical knitting, which means that I alternated my skeins, because I had 2 skeins of the hand-dyed crunchy leaves, and so I didn't want to have any pooling, so I wanted to be able to create a more coherent fabric for that, and so that's what I did. So I'm really pleased with that result. That's the first time I've done that. So normally I would use, I suppose I would probably use like a commercial yarn for a garment and hand-dyed for a shawl. So using hand-dyed for a garment, I thought it really called for doing the helical knitting, so I didn't end up with the pooling that you get with hand-dyed. And I think I'm really pleased with the result, and the colour of the Mass and Mayhem is just so lovely. It's beautiful and warm. And yes, this rather wild wild colour work in the yoke, I'm so pleased with how it turned out. I think it looks, a couple of people said they thought it looked like a Monet painting, and then other people said they thought it looked like Klimt. But what I think we can all agree on is that you can't see the colour work pattern itself. And so what ends up happening is we've got almost like an abstract design. So even although I did follow the colour work pattern, because the yarn is so wildly variegated, you can't actually see the pattern itself, which was the effect I was going for. I did want to have something which was a little bit more abstract. It almost looks like daubs of paint, I think, or maybe light coming through an autumn tree leaves. I'm just really pleased with it, and it feels really delightful, as you would imagine. But I wanted to show you, this is actually the second time that I've knitted this, so I wanted to show you the first time I knitted this, which is this one. And you can really see the colour work. I just wanted to give you the kind of the contrast. I'll stand up again so you can see. So this is the one I knitted first, and this is the one that I've just finished. So you can see in this one the contrast is quite stark, and so you can really make out the pattern, and you can't see it quite so clearly on this one. But this is also Ching fibre in the Melted Suri Alpaca. This colourway was Opal, and I got this I think at the start of lockdown actually, so back in March. And the main colour is, I think it's mid grey in Drops Flora, 4-ply Flora, which is an alpaca wool blend. And I had a mini skein from Yarn from the Shire, which is an Icelandic hand dyeing company, and I'd been gifted this skein which had been sitting in my collection, and I thought, actually, I think that would go really well with this. Oh God, all twisted up now. I thought it would go really well with this Melted Suri. And so I decided to do a corrugated rib, which basically means that you are doing a contrast colour for all the pearls in a 1x1 rib, just making sure obviously that you're keeping your yarn held to the back to create the even rows of knit stitches and purl stitches. So it just kind of gives like a bit of a pop of colour, which I thought replicated this part of the colour work here. So this was the first one that I knitted, and this is the second. So as you can see, they're really quite different pieces from one another, but I really love the way that they fit. I'll stand back a little bit because I didn't do, you'll see I didn't do the corrugated rib with this one. And there you go, there's the second one. So it's a good fun pattern. I really am very interested in how colour work when we start to explore texture alongside the colour and how that influences the final product. And I've had a lot of fun with that this year. And so yeah, I thought you might want to see, so you could compare and contrast. So this is my finished piece for this week. Again, it's the pink velvet sweater, and it's by Andrea Mowry. That's in the 4-ply. I used 2 skeins of the crunchy leaves and 1 skein of the shindig in the melted suri. I've got quite a bit of this suri left, and I've got a very little amount of the 4-ply left, and I knitted size 3. So I've got a little bit of, maybe about an inch of positive ease on it, but I'm really pleased with how it's worked out. Which takes me to what I'm working on now. So I'm having a lot of fun with this next project, I have to admit. So I've got like a dozen projects that I could cast on. When I buy yarn, I tend to buy for a specific project in mind. So most of the yarn in my stash has a particular purpose intended for it, and I can be quite flexible and fluid. Remember, creative sovereignty. And so I give myself the permission, if permission was needed, to change my mind and use the yarn for a different project altogether. But I generally have yarn assigned to particular projects, and I generally know which project I'm going to knit next. However, this project kind of snuck in, so but I'm so enjoying it. Sorry, I've got melted suri alpaca itching my nose. So this particular next knit is from this book here, which is Knits About Winter, and it's by Emily Foden, who's a wonderful designer, and she's also the hand dyer behind Viola Yarns, which you might have heard of. I think she's based over in Canada, which is significantly colder than Scotland and gets a lot more snow from what I can tell. So the sweater that I've cast on, because it is a sweater, is this one here, and it's called the Soiree sweater. If I can find it, that's a good photograph of it there. So you can see that it's kind of a cropped sweater, and it has this cable pattern which goes up the side and down the sleeve. You can see it a bit better again in that one there. So I've had my eye on this pattern for a very long time. I was given this book as a Christmas present must have been last year, maybe year before, not sure. And so I really wanted to have a go at this particular pattern for a while. And then I started thinking about the possibilities of combining that pattern with my Knutadin yarn. Now, Knutadin yarn is a yarn that I've spoken about before. It's from a small Swedish mill, which is run by Caroline and Knut. And I have been a patron of theirs for a few months now, and so I've picked up a collection, a little collection of lovely yarns from them. So the very first yarn that I bought was this one here. And you'll see that their yarn is unspun, and it's sold in these kind of plates. So in that sense, it's quite like Plotalopi, but for my part anyway, it doesn't feel like Plotalopi at all. Each each colour that they bring out is a slightly different composition of yarns, and so they feel slightly different from one another. But my experience of Plitalope is that it can feel quite crisp, but this is lovely and soft, and you can really feel the lanolin in it as well, which is delightful. And the colour is just, you can really see it there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You can see this kind of like pinkish, reddish, and then the gold. So it's a really beautiful, complex peach, I would say. And then the next one that I bought from them was this one, which is called Lavendula Calendula. And it's got these kind of bright pops of kind of violet, actually, and it's also got these kind of reddish, orangey fibres in it as well. So it's an incredibly complex and beautiful colour. So I had both of those, and Caroline very kindly had popped in this little cake here. I'm not quite sure what colour this was, but it's a gorgeous sort of plummy shade, which I just love. Almost like jam or something. And in the last, in one of the, not the last update, but the second last update, which is the last one that I bought something in, I got 300 grams of these. Now I've got a little selection of them, so some look like this, and some look like this. So this pinky colour here is called Goodbye Summer, and I think this is Salt, and inside here is my footprints in the sand. So you can see that it's like this quite golden sand colour, and then this beautiful soft pink. And like I said, I've got others that are just my footprints and the salt. So I started thinking, what would happen if I started to fade some of these colours together? There you go. That's them all there. What if and it's going from that direction. What if I started to fade these colours? Because to get the right yarn weight for the soiree, you need to hold 2 strands together. And so I've been very intrigued by marling and about fading yarn using marling. And so I decided that I was going to experiment using my Knutadin yarn and the soiree. So I cast it on a couple of days ago, and this is what I have. So again, I'm doing size 3, which should give me around about, I think it's between 30 and 40 centimetres of positive ease. So it will be quite a large, loose fitting garment. Again, it's going to be quite a cropped one, so it should come to about my natural waist. And this is what I have so far. So we have this honeycomb pattern here, so you can see, which is made using twisted stitches. And then I've got the cable, and then there's the stockinette body, which I think you can really see. So what I'm doing, my experiment in action. So here I've started with 2 strands of the Lavendula Calendula, and then for the next 10 rows I've striped in rows where I'm holding 2 strands of the Lavendula Calendula with a row where I'm holding 1 strand of the Lavendula Calendula with 1 strand of between petals. And then my next 10 rows I've knitted holding 1 strand of Lavendula Calendula and 1 strand of between petals. And I'm moving into 10 rows of holding 2 strands of the between petals. And then I'm going to start fading in this lovely dark pink into the lighter pink, and then I'm going to fade into the footprints in the sand, and I want to finish up with the salt. But alongside all of those colours, I'm going to be holding 1 strand of the between petals, because I bought 3 cakes of this, so I have the most of this. And I really want to kind of create that consistency of fabric, that consistency of colour moving up through through the body and into the yoke of the jumper. So I'm extremely excited about how that's going to work out. I've never knitted a garment in unspun. I have used a little bit of my between petals in my Letho, if you remember that. It was one of the welts, and so that was really my first time working with that, but this is going to be my first full garment. So I just want to show you kind of the tension that I'm getting and the quality of the fabric. It's got a beautiful halo on it. You see that? And because it's the first time, I found that the yarn, because it's unspun, is going to be more fragile perhaps than a spun yarn. You just need to be a little bit more mindful of that and a bit more gentle. So I find that when I'm taking the yarn off the plate, just to be a bit more conscious of unwinding that. So rather than just, you know, tugging it and pulling it, in which case it will break, just kind of very gently taking it off the plate and then working it into my yarn, and sorry, into my knitting. And if it does break, however, which it has done, like, this is where I've been changing my colours here, so but if it does break, let me find a good place. There. You can see I've got a little wispy bit here, and I just restarted knitting with the yarn again. And so it's just all, I would imagine that once that I'll either weave some of those ends in at the end, but once it's been washed and it starts to felt a little bit, then it's all just going to form a part of the fabric. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. I think it's super interesting. It's a really engaging project. The pattern itself is very well written and is easy to follow, and I'm really not struggling to remember the pattern repeat. So having moved through it once now, I'm not having to even look at the book, and basically I'm just repeating that up the length of the body. It's knitted bottom up, so I will be able to make a decision at a certain point as to whether I want to lengthen the body a little bit or not. And yeah, I think it's going to be a very cozy and warm knit for the winter season. So I'm really excited to see how that ends up. So yes, a beautiful experiment, which I don't think can possibly go wrong. And again, that's another example, I suppose, of this creative sovereignty. You know, I have these beautiful materials, I have access to these lovely patterns. You move forward slightly because I'm jingling here. There we go. Sorry. Yes, I have access to these beautiful patterns. I have access to these lovely yarns, and I get to choose how to use them. And that's an incredibly privileged perspective, a privilege that I hold, and one that I don't take lightly, and one that I really brings me a lot of joy in my life, is being able to exercise my creativity using these incredibly lovely yarns. So people sometimes ask me how to get a hold of the Knutadin yarns. It comes out in updates. They aren't producing any more updates over the course of this year, so the next updates will be in 2021. My tip for being able to access is please go and follow them on Instagram. I'm going to put all the details for today into the description box below, so if there's links to any patterns, any yarns, you will find them in the description box just below this video. And I will leave a link to their website and also to their Instagram, and I highly recommend that you check out their Instagram, because that will show you where the updates are coming and what's going to be in them. The other thing that you might want to do is you might want to explore exactly what it is that they are doing, what their ethos is for producing yarn, and what their mission is, and go and check that out on their Patreon and consider supporting them over there. Caroline produces really lovely podcasts that I enjoy a lot, and she will introduce you to each one of the yarns that is coming out in the update, and so that's a lovely way to observe behind the scenes a little bit and to see what is coming up in the future. And really, they just produce the most magical yarn. I'm just going to pet it for a while. I don't really want to put it back down. But it is really lovely, and it is a very magical yarn that is clearly been made with a lot of love. And so when you are making a jumper or an accessories of sorts, then you know that it's going to be made with love, because the material itself holds that, which is beautiful. So that's what I'm working on right now, and you will not be surprised to see this make an appearance if you've watched this before. I'm still working on my half and half wrap. So my half and half triangles wrap is part of the Caddy Jacks Knit Along, which is the half wrap cal, which is running for a year. I will not be working on this for a whole year because I am actually almost finished. So you can see each row you're knitting, you're picking up another stitch that you turned before. So I've actually not got that many rows to go. So I think this is going to be finished pretty soon. I've spoken quite a lot about this project, so I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs of it again, but I will tell you that the yarn is Holst Super Soft. This colour here is Sweet Pea. This colour here is Cinnamon. It smells really good. I really like it a lot. I'm really excited about finishing it. It is absolutely huge. There's lots of people knitting it. It's a free pattern from Pearl Soho. Again, I will leave a link to that so you can explore that. Most people are knitting it, I think, in the yarn for which it was written, the pattern was written, which is the linen quill. So you can go and explore that too if you'd like to knit it in the linen quill. As I said, I've knit mine in the whole Super Soft, but that's really because linen quill and Pearl Soho yarns aren't as accessible to me over in Edinburgh as they might be if you are in the States. So, and I do tend to like to try and choose yarns that are at least a little bit more local to me and don't have as much to travel. So that's my half and half triangles wrap, which is, like I said, it's the Caddy Jacks Knit Along, and the hashtag for that is the half wrap cal. And they actually had a wonderful gathering, a Zoom gathering. So the people that are participating in the cal all hopped onto Zoom. So we got to connect a little bit and we got to see each other's progress and see which yarns people have chosen, which colours they've put together. It was really a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that. Another collaborative, a collaborative project that I'm doing with Caddy Jacks Knits at the moment is a poetry advent. So if you follow us on, if you follow me and if you follow Caddy Jacks Knits over on Instagram, you'll see that we've been sharing poetry in our stories. So we're taking each day, we're taking turns each day. So Caddy Jacks Knits Jackie started on the 1st, and then I did one on the 2nd. So we've been taking turn and turnabout. It's so fun. We're trying not to choose the poetry ahead so that we get to stay current with what the other has chosen and what is present in the day, and that's really lovely. I have made a poetry advent highlights on my Instagram, so you can go and see the poems that we've shared up till now. And I think there's lots. Well, we're only on the 5th, so we've got lots more lovely poetry to share with you. And we are actually planning to meet, I think we're meeting tomorrow to record a little conversation about the poems that we've already chosen. So we'll be sharing that too. So that's an exciting thing, and I hope you really enjoy that. I've actually been really doing a lot of Advents this year. I've really got into the Advent spirit. I have to say I'm more into Advent at the moment than I am into Christmas itself. So I feel terribly disorganized about Christmas presents, but I was really very well organized for Christmas Advents. So I'm doing the Poetry Advent with Caddy Jack's Knits. I am doing a Small Stones Advent with my dad. If you don't know what small stones are, it's like a writing practice. It was developed by, I think, Satya Robin. I will again share a link to this. But basically, it's about trying to create a very short word picture of something that you observed and were in active presence with throughout your day. And so my dad writes one and I write one each day, and we share it with each other, and I'm collecting them all up together. So I'm almost imagining all our words and our descriptions combining together to create a word cairn. So I'm really enjoying that. I'm doing a wonderful yarn advent with my mum. So mum and I earlier this year both chose a piece of artwork, and then we created yarn advents for each other based on the artwork the other had chosen. So this is the artwork that I chose, which is an Alphonse Mucha painting, and these are some of the colours that we picked out from it. And my mum chose a different image, and with different colours, and so I've been I put that together a wee while ago and sent it off to France, and it arrived on time despite taking 16 days to get there. I was beginning to get a little bit nervous that it had gotten lost, but it did arrive, and it arrived on time. So we've been opening up our individual yarn advents together, which has been such a lovely thing to look forward to every morning. I also received a lovely gift of an advent from my daughter, who gave me a photograph album and a stack of brown envelopes, each with a number. And so I'm opening a different envelope every day, and it has a photograph of my family in it, and I'm putting it into my new photograph album. So that's always a lot of fun to see which photograph I'm going to get each day, and it quite often makes me laugh because my children and my husband are very funny, and and they quite often put funny faces on in photographs, so that's so that's bringing me a giggle every morning too, which is lovely. I made a cross stitch advent for my daughter and her boyfriend, and so they both have these kind of vintage bauble designs that I bought from Etsy. I can't remember who the designer for those were, but again I will pop that into the description box. And a selection of different colours of embroidery floss. So they've got little boxes that are numbered, and they open each box each day, and they get different colours of embroidery floss and a different little design to cross stitch for that day. So I did that, and I got tea and coffee and chocolate advents for my other children, and for my son's girlfriend, and also for my husband. So I was very on it with that. And I also bought a lovely yarn. See, I told you I went daft this advent. I just thought it's been a difficult year. It's been challenging for everybody, and with the current lockdowns and with the darkening days and the worsening weather, I thought we really needed just a little bit of joy each day. And so I just wanted to give that to as many people as I could, really. So I also gave a yarn advent to my best friend Jen, and I gave her the mini ball advent from We County Yarns is called, and the mini balls of yarn are from JC Rennie, and so each day has I think it's a 10-gram ball of yarn, and there's a lovely pattern, and so you can knit the yarn that you get each day into the pattern. And so I know that she's really enjoying that, and it's lovely because the yarn is so complex again and vibrant and beautiful. So yeah, that's also what I've been doing. So I've been working on soiree sweater, half and half triangles wrap, and lots of advents. So oh, and one other thing I've been working on is the My Word Goddess readings, which have been released for 2021. So for the last 10 years, I cannot believe it's 10 years, for the last 10 years, I have offered the My Word Goddess readings. Now, you might have heard of the practice of choosing a word for the year. I know you've definitely heard of choosing a New Year's resolution, but a wee while back, this new practice came in of choosing a word for a year. So rather than it being something fixed like a goal, it was more like a touchstone, something that we wanted to intentionally bring into our lives, something we wanted to learn more about, or something we wanted to be in deeper relationship with. So it can be quite difficult though to choose a word for the year. So I wanted to create an offering that would help people to choose a word for the year as guided by goddesses, which of course is my work. So basically, using goddess archetypes, I can help people to identify particular themes or particular values, qualities that they want to invite more of into their lives. And so I created the My Word Goddess readings. So basically, they are it's a PDF that you get, which introduces you to a particular goddess that I have selected for you, and I will tell you a little bit about her story. You'll get a link to a Pinterest board so you can see lots of images that I connect up with her archetype, and you'll get a list of words that you could possibly choose that are connected, or that I connect to that particular goddess. I also choose an oracle card that's connected with that goddess too, so there are words connected to that too. And I also look to see where that particular goddess asteroid is in the astrological chart, and so there are some words there to choose from as well. And I always like to try and include some kind of gift, and so this year the gift is going to be 4 letters, which are going to be distributed throughout 2021, delivered on the equinoxes and on the solstices. And these are really going to be invitations to more actively engage with your goddess guide of the year. So what quite often happens is that somebody will get a My Word Goddess reading at the beginning of the year, and then they won't tend to they'll really enjoy it at the time, but then they might not necessarily think about it as they're moving throughout the rest of the year until we get to the very end of the year, and then they might have some kind of reflective practice. They might think back on, that the year that was, and how their goddess presented, and what and how their word expressed. So instead of doing that this coming year, I would like to create invitations for people to create a more continuous connection to their goddess of the year. And so that's what I'm doing. So that's the gift that accompanies this year's My Word Goddess readings. So they are now available for order. They'll be sent out from the 14th of December. You have 2 months to order yours, so they're only available until the end of January, and then they come off the market. They are priced at £30 each, and I have a discount for multiple purchases. So if you want to buy one for a friend, or for a sister, or for a fellow knitter, or then you can, and you'll get a discount on the second, or multiple purchases after the first. And so that's all set up and described on the page that I can link to in the description box below. So you can go and find out a little bit more about it there if you're interested in having a goddess guide for 2021. So yes, that's the other thing I've been working on. So I've been busy. But what's next? Well, I wanted to show you some yarn that I got delivered. So I bought this during iKnit 7, and I bought it from, which I explained last time, was yarn, I suppose it was like it's called a yarn extravaganza, but it was kind of like a yarn shop festival, or a yarn shop crawl, I suppose, for COVID times. So we didn't get to go to the shops, but the shops came to us through Instagram, and they shared interviews and shop tours and lots of fun and games. It was completely delightful, and there were discounts for each shop involved, and it lasted for a week. all the shops were from the UK and Ireland, and one of the shops was called Knit with Attitude, which is based in London, and they sell the Soulskin yarn, which is Norwegian, and my Soulskin yarn arrived. So it's a very dark blue. That's a good cut. That's a good one. Except you've got one of my hairs. This is the problem with having long silver hair, is that it shows up on everything. You always know I've been to visit. Let's put it that way. So we've got this lovely dark blue, which I think is called Marine Blau. And we have this shade here, which is Cognac. So I'm really pleased with how these colours work together. Can you see that? Don't they look spectacular? Look at that gloss. And I've knitted with Soulskin before. I do really like it. And so I'm excited to knit with this. What I'm intending to knit with it, as I said, I like to assign a project to my yarn purchase, is this, which is again, it's another Andrea Mowry. I do like an Andrea Mowry sweater. And this one is the Junction. So we've got a bit of brioche up the top here, and then we've got this flea colour work throughout the body and the sleeves. So I'm really intrigued to see how this cognac and this dark marine blue interact with one another. I think that'll be very beautiful. So that's what's next. That's what I'm saying is next just now. But creative sovereignty, being the queen of my own domain and my own knitting practice, I get to decide. So so who knows what's actually going to be next? Well, we'll need to decide. But what I wanted to share with you next really was one of the beautiful ways in which I'm seeing creative sovereignty being expressed by others. And that mainly right now is through something called Vlogmas. I don't know, if you watch knitting podcasts, then you are already very familiar, I would imagine, with Vlogmas. Vlogmas is not restricted or limited to knitting podcasts, but I only watch Vlogmas on knitting podcasts. So I don't know what the others are like, but I do really enjoy them. They are short vlogs where knitting podcasters share the lead up to Christmas. So you get to see their rituals and their preparations. You get to see the events or anything that they're participating in. And of course, because we are all collectively moving through this global public health crisis right now, Christmas is looking really very different. And so just like the Advents that I've been creating and enjoying are a way of staying close to my loved ones throughout this Christmas period, I think Vlogmas is a really lovely way for us to connect on a global scale, where these podcasts are, being shared from various different places, and so we get to experience what Christmas prep looks like in all these other countries. So the ones that I'm enjoying, I just thought I would share a few with you, and I will link again in the description box so you can see them. I really like Marilisa's Girl Meets Yarn. I think she does a lovely vlog. She does a lot of Instagram stories as well, so it's a format that she feels very comfortable in, I think, and it really shows. And so it's a delight to see her enjoying Christmas, and she's doing Christmas really well. It's beautiful. I also watched the Chelsea Pearls Vlogmas yesterday. I caught up with that. They did have quite a long-running podcast, which they haven't been doing over this year, but they've brought back Vlogmas, so I've been enjoying catching up there. The Tailoress Studio is one based down in England, as is the So Sweet Violet and Tales from Cuckoo Land, which I've been enjoying the three of those as well. Back over to the States, or back over to Canada actually, there's Sandy by the Lakeside. Then down into the States we've got the Woolen Forest Knits, and then there's a few that I haven't caught up with yet because there's so many, but they're all equally wonderful. So this is the ones that I'm looking forward to catching up with next, and that is the Hawthorne Cottage Craft, Bed of Roses, Brooklyn Knit Folk and Skandir Knits are all doing Vlogmas this year. I think Wool and Vine is also doing Vlogmas too. So there's just so many. I could go on listing them, but once you start watching one, you'll find that you start watching lots. One of the things they do too is that you tend to see in these Vlogmases is people opening up their advents. So even after I've opened up my advents and found out what everybody else got in their advents that I've gifted, I then get to watch other people opening their advents too. So that's a real bright thing for me just now. It's really lovely. So not only have I been giving away advents, but I was approached by a wonderful designer and asked if I would like to do a giveaway on my podcast. And so I said, yes, absolutely, because this designer is called Sarah Bauer. She's Sarah Pomegranate on Instagram, and she has produced a wonderful collection of designs which are inspired by my favourite book, which I've mentioned here before, which is Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa, Pinkola, Estes. Now, Sarah Bauer also has her own audio podcast called Yarns at Yin Hu, which is also very lovely, and I recommend that you check that out too. So the collection itself at the moment has the Take Back the River socks and Deep in the Forest cowl, and then on the 20th of December she's bringing out a lovely hat pattern called One Dark Blue Night, which I can show you here. One Dark Blue Night, and it's based on the moon phases. Isn't that spectacular? So she very kindly gifted me a copy of the pattern, and she wants to gift you a copy of the pattern too. So I said we would do a giveaway here. So what you need to do in order to win the giveaway is like and subscribe, and then leave a comment. Now the comment is inspired by, or your invitation, your creative prompt for your comment is inspired by, again, Women Who Run with the Wolves. So I'll just read you out this little paragraph, and then I'll tell you what you need to leave in the comment. Because matrilineal lines of initiation, older women teaching younger women certain psychic facts and procedures of the wild feminine, have been fragmented and broken for so many women and over so many years, it is a blessing to have the archaeology of the fairy tale to learn from. What can be derived from those deep templates echoes the innate patterns of women's most integral psychological processes. In this sense, fairy tales and mythos are initiators. They are the wise ones who teach those who have come after. So, my loves, I would like for you to share in the comments what your favourite fairy tale or myth is. And maybe if you're feeling like it, I mean, you can just leave, you know, whatever favourite one it is. But if you would like, you could tell me why as well. That would be wonderful. And it would give you an opportunity to reflect on why you love it so much as well. So if you'd like to enter into the giveaway for a copy of the hat pattern, One Dark Blue Night, I've got one copy to give away, and I'll announce the winner next time I record, which will be in 2 weeks' time. And so if you could get your comment up before then, that would be great. And I will enter you into the prize draw and announce the winner next time. So I think that's pretty much us, my loves. So I'm wishing you a wonderful rest of December. I'm wishing you creative sovereignty. I'm wishing you delight in whatever your practice is. And I hope that you find much joy throughout the rest of the Christmas season. So until next time, I'll see you then.